Hey everyone, I am making my very first not for church YouTube video for my very own channel. I'm very nervous, but I'm very excited about it. I've been challenged in my master's work, the current class I'm in, to create a video once a week to talk about something that I'm passionate about, that I think will help you, that will help others. And so that's what I'm doing right now, and that's what I think for the next 4 weeks. One of the things I'm very passionate about, if you don't know already, is Disney. I love Walt Disney. I love the parks. I go back constantly. And when I think about Disney, I think about creativity. I think about innovation. I think about not being satisfied with the status quo. So my question for you today is, have you become satisfied with the status quo? When was the last time you were creative? When was the last time that you really innovated or challenged a current way of thinking, whether in your own life or your own organization or your own church or anything like that? Again, I think of Walt, and you can kind of see his progress, his step-by-step of taking something and not being satisfied with it and trying to do something better, trying to innovate or create to go to that next level. You can kind of start it out with his early career, him as a cartoonist, drawing cartoons for the paper, not really being satisfied with that, and he wanted to go into animation. So he created his own company with a friend of his, and he created, as you are fully aware of, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And they start working on these cartoons with him. Eventually, Walt's friend ends up betraying Walt, takes Oswald with him. Walt is left with nothing. And on a trip back from New York, heading back to California, he comes up with this concept of maybe instead of a rabbit, we use a mouse. And on this trip, he comes up with Mortimer Mouse. But his wife did not enjoy that name, so that's where Mickey came from. Mickey Mouse, the name actually comes from Lillian Disney. I think that is the coolest thing. So Walt creates Mickey, and it's really history from there. Everyone knows Mickey. Mickey is, 90 plus years old now, and just all over the place. And I'm actually looking at my iPhone right now, and I see the three cameras, and it's like, oh, it makes a little mouse shape right there. It's just iconic now. But Walt wasn't satisfied with just the Mickey Mouse shorts. You see him move into more feature films. In 1938, he creates the very first feature-length animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. People didn't think that they would want to sit down for a full-length movie that's fully animated, but Snow White was a major success. Walt, being who he is, was not fully satisfied with that experience, so he wanted to he created this idea of what if we show a picture and stuff happens in the movie theater that enhances that experience. So Walt comes up with this idea of Fantasia, where he takes classical music, puts cartoons to it, but his idea was that movie theaters would come up with a new style of sound system that instead of all the sound coming at you from the front of the screen, but maybe the sound comes around from every direction, kind of the grandfather, if you will, of surround sound. And then his concept even was that ushers, through the course of the film, would have different things that would enhance the movie theater entertainment value. So when Mickey is up on his mountain and he's causing waves to come up, ushers would take water bottles and spray the audience. There would be smells that could happen, those kind of things. Unfortunately, Fantasia ended up being a flop, except for certain theaters. Not every theater caught on to Walt's vision. Only, if I remember correctly from the tour we took where they were kind of given this idea, only 11 movie theaters did Fantasia to Walt's vision. And Fantasia was a hit at those 11 theaters. Everywhere else had flopped, but it was a hit at those other theaters. People kept going back. But seeing it was a flop, Walt decided that he didn't want to leave the experience to the movie theaters, that he wanted to be able to control the experience himself, to be able to create these stories that people can experience, that people can feel, and he have the control of it. So that is another area of where Disneyland comes in, which is appropriate. This weekend, Disneyland just celebrated its 65th anniversary, so it's super cool. I just wish it was open for it. Here's hoping that it's open in May, because I'd really like to visit then. So Walt creates Disneyland. And Disneyland isn't just a place where you sit and things happen. You are a part of the story. You don't just get to watch Snow White. You can actually meet Snow White. You don't just see Peter Pan. You actually ride the ride. You experience the story. Everything comes to life at Disneyland. And it kind of became Walt's big playground. And of course, Walt, still not satisfied, knows he's kind of landlocked in Disneyland, creates this idea of having another park in another part of the United States, ended up in Florida, where he bought all of this land to be able to create more and more. And so that's where Walt Disney World comes in. Unfortunately, he passed away before Walt Disney World was able to be completed. But you see this almost step-by-step of Walt not being satisfied, and what is the next step? How innovating and being creative to do the next level, the next step, the next thing. And it really challenges me, and I hope it challenges you too, to think about, have I settled? Have you settled? Whether it's in your own life or your own job or at a church or whatever you're doing, whether even in school or even if you're in extracurricular activities. For instance, if you're a sports person, accepting the status quo is you quit working out, you quit going to practices and still expected to play a game. No, we're constantly wanting to make ourselves better. We're constantly trying to do better. And I think it's easy for us to fall into this rut of falling into the normalcy, the everyday things, the mundane things, and not questioning the status quo, not trying to figure out better ways to accomplish our goals or our organization's goals or our team's goals or whatever it is. So that's my challenge for you, is to question, have I fallen into a rut? Have I become mundane? How am I going to challenge the status quo? Another thing that I've recently learned within the last couple months, there's a guy named Jeff Walling who did this talk, and he brings up this idea that creativity is not something that only certain people have, that only Walt was creative, or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs were only creative people, and you have to have a specific gift. He actually says that's not the case. Creativity is in everyone. It just takes the right atmosphere to bring that out. He brings up a couple concepts that if you feel like you need to build an atmosphere of creativity, one of the things he brings up is having fun. Having fun, smiling, telling jokes, taking your team out for a retreat, team building exercises, those kind of things. Building fun creates an atmosphere of creativity. Another item that he brings up is being flexible, to stretch yourself, to be willing to try new things, to look for different answers, to be flexible. A last thing that he brings up is not being afraid of failure. And that's a big struggle for me. I fear failure, but what we see is failure is what brings about right answers. A quote that he says is, "You miss every shot you don't take." If you never shoot, you're never going to make a basket. So create an atmosphere of creativity. You can do this. You can be creative. You can think outside the box. And that's my challenge for you this week. So please, for the sake of my homework, help me out. Watch the videos. Follow my YouTube channel. You're going to get a video once a week. like, subscribe, all the things that go with that you hear in every single YouTube channel out there. But hopefully this is something that will encourage you, something that will challenge you, and then I will see you next week with another little Disney principle that you can use. Take care.